Shalom, and welcome to Today Through Jewish Eyes. I'm Olivier Melnick. Today I want to talk to you about a very special individual, the Arab Christian who saved Jews. First, let me ask you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so, and hit the notification bell, and also give us a thumbs up. It really helps us to get a broader audience. So, really, anyone following what happens in Israel is aware that several terrorist attacks took place all over the country in the last couple of weeks, 4 to be exact. And there could be more even as I'm speaking to you. As a result, 13 Israelis have died, which is the most death by terrorism in several years. Many have been wounded on top of that. What you might not hear on the mainstream news is how many attacks were averted by the Israeli authorities. This is all happening in conjunction with the month of Ramadan, which is an important month for Muslims. Some might say that the timing was carefully planned, but that's hard to prove, although it's tempting. Israel has pretty much been at war, when you think about it, with its Arab neighbors since May 14th, 1948. So there might be a connection with the time of the celebration of Ramadan. Terrorism is almost an expectation in the Israeli psyche, but that never prevents Israelis from conducting business as usual, day in, day out. Nothing will really stop Israel from its daily routine, not BDS, not terrorism, or even anti-Semitism, as hard as it tries. The accusations flow all over the place. Israel is an apartheid state. The Jews are stealing Palestinian land. Israel is committing ethnic cleansing, or even the Jews are the new Nazis of the Middle East. In reality, Israel is the only true democracy in the Middle East, as I've told you before. It is only in Israel that you can find Arabs members of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, or even Arab triage nurses in Jewish hospitals. I was in a hospital when I saw one. Israel is probably the country with the most freedoms given to Arabs in all of the Arab world. I witnessed that during many of my trips. Israel truly is a melting pot where several world religions converge, especially in Jerusalem. The old city of Jerusalem is divided into 4 quarters: the Jewish quarters, the Christian quarter, the Muslim quarter, and the Armenian quarter. For the most part, different faiths coexist peacefully within the wall of the old city and even beyond its borders. Once in a while, an incident is reported, but soon after, life resumes. Arabs, Christians, and Jews coexist. But this doesn't mean that they share the same values or practice the same customs and traditions. Most of the time, Arabs, Christians, and Jews simply tolerate each other and respectfully stay away from each other, unless something out of the ordinary occurs, like what happened on March 29th in the area known as Bnei Brak. The area known as Bnei Brak is found in east of Tel Aviv and is the home of the Haredi community, the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community. Bnei Brak has a population of over 200,000 and is one of the most densely populated cities in the world. The reality is that there are never that many Arabs in Bnei Brak. Not because it is unsafe, but simply because this is not where their community resides. This is a very Jewish Orthodox community. On March 29th, 2022, just a few weeks ago, the Bnei Brak community was attacked by a terrorist. The Arab gunman killed 5 Israelis before he was shot. The victims were 4 civilians and 1 officer. Since then, a 4th attack took place in central Tel Aviv, taking the lives of 4 more people and wounding at least a dozen more. This resurgence of apparently random terrorist attacks all over Israel could be the start of what we could call a 3rd intifada, which means uprising. There will probably be more, and most of the civilized world will either ignore, downplay, or flipped the narrative to paint the Palestinians as victims defending themselves, even though the attackers, the terrorists, are all Palestinians. In the midst of all this terror in Israel is a story that has got very little coverage on mainstream media. The Bnei Brak terrorist could have claimed a lot more lives, but he was shot to prevent that. So what happened? Well, one police officer, Amir Khoury, an Arab Christian, rushed to the scene with another police officer on their motorcycles. They caught up with the terrorist and shot him. Unfortunately, before the terrorist was stopped, he had an opportunity to shoot and kill Amir Khoury. Mr. Khoury gave his life up as a hero to protect others. It was a selfless act that cost him his life. But it prevented the loss of other lives. The CBN reported this. Khoury, 32, was called to the scene of a terror attack on Tuesday in the Orthodox Israeli city of Bnei Brak near Tel Aviv. He and another cop directly engaged with the Palestinian gunman, and he was mortally wounded, making him one of the 5 victims who were killed in Tuesday's attack. Israeli officials say his action prevented more death. Close quote. I find it ironic that an Arab Christian saved Jewish people. It's ironic and beautiful at the same time. That is exactly what he did. And as a result, myriads of Orthodox Jews came to his funeral. What happened is they truly saw him as a hero who saved many Jewish lives. It is not often that we witness Arabs and Jews getting along, although, and it is sad to say, there are always better opportunities for them to coexist, get along, and even have respect for each other in Israel, more than in the disputed territories, unfortunately. But Mr. Khoury was different. He was an Arab Christian. What does that mean? He was an Arab who might have been indoctrinated by family and or school teachers in his youth against Israel and the Jewish people. But now he was different. Something happened. He was different because he had placed his trust by faith in a Jewish Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus. Only when he was reborn in Yeshua, as it was advised to Rabbi Nicodemus in John chapter 3, verses 1 through 15, we can see people from a different perspective. When we commit our life to the Messiah of Israel and Savior of the world, we truly understand and are able to apply in our own life the difficult verse spoken by Yeshua himself in Matthew 5:43 and 44. And I quote, "You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Close quote. That is a difficult verse. Even as a believer, it's a difficult verse. Yeshua understood what it meant to sacrifice oneself for others. He was the epitome of self-sacrifice unto death. He gave us the model for Christian living, a model that Mr. Khoury understood and was willing to accept, all the way as his actions showed us recently. 1 John 3:16 is clear, and I quote, By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers." Close quote. Mr. Khoury was not just a hero in his community, but he was a reborn creature who set aside any difference he might have had in the past, in the flesh, to serve God as one of his children. I look forward to seeing my brother Amir Khoury in heaven, and in the meantime, I express my gratitude to his mourning family. I am also reminded from the Bible of an important verse in Psalm 133:1. "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity." Shalom, and be blessed.